Hi everybody, welcome back to the sewing room. I'm Chris and this is Sewjourns, where we journey into sewing. I've got something really special coming up for you today and a fun collaboration with another sewing friend that you're going to recognize, so stay tuned. Welcome to Sewjourns. Let's journey into sewing. I have a brand new pattern to talk to you about today, and it's fantastic. Before we begin today, I want to thank you for joining me and remind you to please subscribe and like to this channel and share it. And if you subscribe and ring the little bell, you'll get a notification for the next time I post some content, so you won't miss a thing. And today I'm going to share with you a brand new pattern. It's really exciting. It's from Itch to Stitch, and I'm doing a collaboration video today with Karina from Lifting Pins and Needles. We've both done two versions of this very special pattern for you. I will link to her channel in the description box, so please check that out. We had so much fun. We tested this pattern together, and we have 4 completely different makes of the same pattern. You're going to love it. Okay. Let's get into it. Today I have for you a new pattern by one of my favorite new to me designers. Actually, they've just celebrated her 6th year. Itch to Stitch. You may recall that I recently have done a review on the Mountain View jeans, which I'm actually wearing today. The Mountain View pull-on jeans, which were fantastic. This was the first pattern that she had extended her sizes. So now size 00 to size 40. And that's no different with this new pattern. So I'm going to back up and I'm going to show you what we're doing. This is the Itch to Stitch Causeway Bomber Jacket. This jacket is completely reversible with no unfinished seams. Everything is finished and clean on the inside. It has princess seams here, which are really flattering, and it gives you an opportunity to use a contrasting fabric. And I'm going to have something to show you. And look at this, hidden zipper pockets. Hidden zipper pockets that are optional. They go right in the princess seam. Look at this little hot pink surprise. And here they are. All right, so let me tell you about it. Today is the release date for the Causeway Bomber Jacket, and this pattern is on sale now for 20% off, and it'll run through next Wednesday. Let me just get that date I have here. It'll run till next Wednesday, the 21st. I'll have a link to the Causeway Bomber Jacket from Itch to Stitch down in the description box, and that'll be my affiliate link. Thank you for using my affiliate link. It helps to support my channel and helps me to keep bringing all these pattern reviews and hacks and fun things to you. So thank you very much. And remember, that pattern is on sale for only 1 week, and that affiliate link will take you right to the sale price of the jacket. As with all of the new Itch to Stitch patterns, this goes from sizes 00 to size 40. And there are cup sizes, A to double D. And in the size chart, you will find every exact measurement so that you can get your perfect fit. So you'll measure for your upper chest, your waist, and your hips. The jacket is meant to hit at high hip, woven jacket. That's really nice. I've sewn some bomber jackets before, but they've been all knit. This is a woven jacket. The one I made here, the black swirl, this is cotton linen blend, which I got from Boho Fabrics, and I'll link that for you in the description box. And then inside, I have lined it with a pink poly, almost like a satin feel lining. Hot pink, I love it. I did the same for those pockets that I showed you earlier. And this is fully finished on the inside. You can have pockets on both sides. And if you use a reversible zipper, you have 2 jackets for 1. So that's amazing. 2 jackets for 1. I did not have a reversible zipper, but my jacket is still fully reversible. Don't have to zip it up. Everything is fully finished. I did not put pockets on the pink side, but here you go. Isn't that beautiful? Such beautiful finishes. So what you'll need is a 22 to 24 inch zipper. And those zippers can be shortened, whether it's a nylon zipper or a metal zipper. And Candice does show you how to do that in the tutorial. So depending on your size, anywhere from even a 21 to a 24 inch zipper. I think mine was a 22 and then I shortened it a little bit. If you're going to do the pockets in the princess seams, you will need 2 invisible zippers. I suggest that you get a little bit bigger than the opening. A 7-inch zipper will accommodate these pockets. I like using a 9 or longer because it's easier to install. And in our Sew You Can segment, I am going to walk you through how to use an invisible zipper foot and install an invisible zipper. You don't have to have an invisible zipper foot. I showed you 2 other zipper feet that you can use to get the same result. I would say the skill level for this jacket is intermediate plus maybe. You have the hidden zippers, you have the fully reversible jacket, putting the sleeves together, putting the band on. But even if you've never done anything like that before, the tutorial is so well done and the illustrations are so well done that you won't have any problems. And there's a lot of help in the group on Facebook. I'm happy to help you too. So you can always ask me questions in the comments. You can leave a comment. I'm going to take you through sewing on the pockets. It's in the tutorial, but sometimes on those little fiddly parts, it's good to see it done up close and personal. On the jacket pockets, I realize because it's black, it doesn't show up great on camera. So I'm going to do it on other scrap fabric with a zipper that doesn't match so that you can see the contrasting thread, the contrasting zipper, but you will see that it's completely invisible. And we have a couple other things to show you. When we come back from all that, I'm going to show you jacket number 2 and a really fun hack I did with that, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Here we go. Sew You Can, invisible zippers. Okay, for our Sew You Can segment today, we're going to show you how to put in an invisible zipper. Here I have 2 zippers. The pink is a regular zipper. You can see the teeth here. The green is an invisible zipper. You see how you can't see the teeth at all? And the pull is even different. The pull is smaller and more delicate. I'm going to be using the contrasting invisible zipper today, contrasting thread and contrasting fabric so it shows up really well while filming. So I'm going to get rid of our pink zipper. This green invisible zipper is longer than we need, and that's my suggestion. It's easier to put it in if it's a little bit longer. You can do it if it's the exact size. This is a 9-inch zipper. Our jacket calls for a 7-inch zipper, so we have a little leeway. First, we need to prepare our zipper. So what we're going to do is unzip it and turn it over to the wrong side. We're going to take an iron and we're going to iron these teeth over as much as we can so that when we sew here, we're going to be able to sew as close to those teeth as possible. So here I have a very hot iron and I'm just going to take it, probably have to turn this way, and I'm just going to press, come down here, and you can see that those zipper teeth are going to push out just a little bit more with the tip of my iron. They're standing up. That's exactly what you want. You want it to stand up. So you just use the tip of your iron and right along those teeth. Same thing here. I'm ironing right along that zipper tape, pushing those teeth high and tight. Bring this over here, trying to stay out of the camera. There we go. All right. And now make sure that we're still able to zip it. We are. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. So now we've prepared our invisible zipper. Here I have our garment. This would be our jacket. And according to the tutorial, or this is how you would do all invisible zippers, so I've sewn it with the proper seam allowance, 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've sewn with my lock-in stitches up to the beginning or the notch or the indication on whatever pattern you're using. Then I switched to a basting stitch, and I basted the area where we will have our pocket, where we're going to put our invisible zipper. Came down to here, locked in my stitch again, and finished sewing my seam. So we will open that up as soon as we get our zipper in position. I have, in preparation, put some Wonder Tape, wash away Wonder Tape on the seam allowance on one side. So all I have to do is peel this back and place our zipper. You can hand baste your zipper on if you prefer, or machine baste, but I'm going to use the Wonder Tape. First, let me show you how we're going to do this. We're going to take our zipper. I'm going to pull down a tiny bit. And right at the top of the zipper stop, I'm just going to mark our zipper. Okay. Zip that up again. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to match those marks up. We are going to place our zipper right sides down to the right side of the seam allowance. You'll see here, the seam allowance is up, that's the right side. We're going to place that zipper the best we can right on that center place where we basted. We'll do that. Now my zipper is longer, which is going to be good for us. So now I'm going to remove the backing of the Wonder Tape. Right side of the zipper, down right into that basting stitch. So I'm going to line up those two marks I made, and I'm just going to check that I have that right in the center, and I'm just going to press it. That Wonder Tape will hold it in place. And it looks like I have it right where I want it. So I'm going to press my Wonder Tape into position. This is where you would hand baste or machine baste if you prefer. If you do that, make sure you're only basting through the seam allowance, not through your jacket or not through your garment, only the seam allowance. Now we're going to take our seam ripper and we're just going to open up those basting stitches that we've sewn earlier. They're basting stitches, so they'll come right out. And then it stops there. So now we have our zipper right in the middle. That's exactly where we want it. And you can pull out all these basting stitches. I'm not going to take the time to do that now. Okay, so now we're going to get our zipper. We're going to pull it through. And we're going to open the zipper. We get down to here, we're going to turn it over. And we're going to grab it out of here, and we're going to pull it all the way down and get it out of the way. Now it'll be out of the way, which is really good. I had marked this before, but it came undone, but I'm going to mark where I want that to stop. So let's see where that, right there. This is where I'm going to want to stop sewing. There we go. So now we're all set. Now, of course, your zipper will match your project. Your thread will match your project. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew in our invisible zipper. Over at the sewing machine now, I've gotten out my invisible zipper foot. I'm going to turn it over here and you'll see the groove. There are two grooves, one for each side of your zipper. Those teeth that we ironed up are going to slide right into one of those grooves, and then this little flange will keep us sewing as close to those teeth as possible, which is the idea. So I'm going to put on my invisible zipper foot. Before I do, if you do not have an invisible zipper foot, you can still do this application. Here's a zipper foot. There are a couple different kinds of zipper feet. There are 3 different kinds of zipper feet. So this is invisible zipper, regular zipper, regular zipper. As you can see, this one is more long and narrow. You can actually get in much, much closer with this type of zipper foot. So that will work beautifully for an invisible zipper. This is your standard zipper foot. It will still work if your machine allows you to move your needle very far over to the right. My machine has many needle positions, so I can do it. I'm going to come to the machine and just attach my foot. Mine clips on. What we want to do is flip our fabric out of the way, our jacket out of the way, because we are only going to be sewing on the seam allowance. Only sewing the zipper to the seam allowance. We're going to lower the foot and allow those teeth to find that groove. There's a tiny little notch here that you can't see, but that is the groove. The zipper will find the groove. Your needle is going to follow this notch here on the toe. And now we're going to go slow and we're going to sew right here. Now you would be using matching thread. Lock in your stitches. There we go. Now that I'm locked in, I'm going to cut that away. Normally that goes under the foot, but there isn't a hole to put that through. All right, and now I'm going to let the machine sew as close as it can. And you can even continue to push this over if you feel like it's jumping out of the groove. But because we ironed it, we should be very good. Encouraging it doesn't hurt though. Now here's our mark. We're going to stop there and we're going to backstitch. There we go. Lock in those stitches. Let's take a look. As you see, there are no threads on this side of the zipper where we've sewn it because we've only sewing to the seam allowance. So there are no threads. These are our basting threads, which will come right out. And now we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we finished sewing the one side on. You can see here we've only sewn it to the seam allowance, not to the front. Therefore, you're seeing no stitches. So now we're going to sew this side on. I'll flip this over, pull back my fabric, my jacket, my skirt, whatever it is you're working on, so that you're only sewing through the seam allowance again. Coming over to this side. Now we're going to put the zipper in this channel here on the right. I'll lower my foot. That zipper will find that channel. We'll sew as close to the teeth as we can. Locking in the stitches. Let's remove that, trim any threads. Let me flip this over. I'm going to trim some threads up here as well. Flip this over. No stitches on the outside. All right, so now we're going to come under here, begin to close our zipper, and then we can flip it back and pull it through here. And we'll zip it up. Look at that. Undetectable hidden zipper. Now, of course, you're going to use a blue zipper. So you will have just this blue pull right out here so you can find it on your jacket or whatever color your jacket is. My jacket was black and white, and when I did this with the black zipper, it really couldn't be seen on camera. But now you have the method. Isn't that terrific? Now you are all set. So you'll just open this up and your pocket will be in there, or this could be the side of your pants, skirt. Now you know how to do an invisible zipper.
Now let's learn how to construct that hidden pocket.
So now I have the upper pocket. In the tutorial, it'll tell you that the side front part of the jacket, that is the curved portion, that's referred to as the top. The front jacket, the part where the zipper will go, is referred to as the bottom, and that refers to the zipper tape so that you don't get confused. This pink will be my pocket, and this is the upper pocket. So it gets attached to the top zipper tape, the one that's attached to the side piece. So I have that clipped just on the zipper tape, not through the fabric, not through the body. I'm going to sew that only to the zipper tape, not to the body. So I'll have to flip this out of the way, and you'll have to be very careful that you're pulling that jacket out of the way and sewing only onto the zipper tape. Okay. Here we have the pocket we've just sewn onto the top zipper tape, top pocket, top zipper tape. Now I'm going to flip that up out of the way. Here is the bottom pocket bag. That's what the piece is named. This is the right side. That's going to get sewn to the bottom zipper tape. Remember, the bottom zipper tape, we're going to call that the piece that goes to the front of the jacket. And here's where your zipper will go. So you know this is the front of the jacket. Okay, now we're going to flip this over. So we have right sides of the pockets together. This is my wrong side. And we're going to take these two notch markings, we're going to line them up with these two, just as we did before. Pin this to this zipper tape only, and the seam allowance here of the jacket, and sew that on with a 1/4 inch, just like we did with the previous one. Now that the top and the bottom bags, pocket bags, are attached to our zipper tape, I've pressed them both. I'm very excited about these hot pin pockets, and we're ready to put the pockets together. So our pocket together. I have flipped the top pocket bag over, right sides together with the bottom pocket bag. Remember, they're both stitched on. And I've clipped along the bottom and the top. We are not going to sew this right here. We're going to baste it after we're done, but do not sew this part right here. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to come around to here, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to sew to here, locking in my stitches.
Here we have the completed pocket, sewn all around the edges and then basted along that outer front edge where your zipper will be. And now you're ready to go on and complete your Causeway Bomber Jacket.
Do you feel confident to sew your invisible zipper pockets now? I sure hope so. Look what I'm wearing. Jacket number 2. This is my Causeway Bomber Jacket with a hood hack. This was so fun. Look at the fabric. I have my mannequins, an ode to my sewing room. There's piping on the princess seams. Here's your opportunity for a contrast fabric. Also the sleeve, I didn't mention the sleeve. The sleeve on the Causeway is a 2-piece sleeve. I love a 2-piece sleeve on the jacket. It makes for ease of movement and style. And on the back here, you'll see that I use the back sleeve to match the side seam here. Not only do we have a hood on our Causeway jacket, this is completely woven. So if you can't find heavy rib knit or a suitable knit for the collar, because you really need it to be heavy, it wants to stand up a little, and for the cuffs and for the band, I have done this fully woven, and I'll show you how. The outside, this sewing fabric is a quilter's cotton, a very good quality quilter's cotton that I love, and the solid fabric is twill. So these fabrics together are heavy. The twill, the solid color, is also the inside. It's also the lining on this reversible jacket and the lining of the hood. So this is actually a pretty warm jacket. North Carolina. I mean, this is going to take me through probably Christmas. I'm just so tickled. For the hood, I used the hood from another Itch to Stitch pattern, the Castillo cardigan. I used that hood. You can use any hood, you can draft your own hood, but this was a good starting place. You might have to make a little few measurements, and I'll show you what we did, but it was an outline of a hood already, and it was from the same designer, so I knew it would be impeccable. So I used that, but any hood pattern or make your own, and I'll show you how to do that. For the bottom band, because I wanted this to be a completely woven pattern or a woven hack, in case you can't find rib knit, what I've done is I've changed the measurements for the band, and I'm using the woven, and inside here is very wide elastic, 2 1/4, 2 1/2 inch wide elastic. That gives you the look that the band gives you. You know, this jacket isn't meant to be tight around the hips, but it pulls in just ever so slightly. The knit band on the original one is just slightly shorter. You're only stretching it to fit a little bit. So to give that same look, I added the wide elastic. And it gives that same look. So the jacket stays put, but you can see that it's not like on a band on the bottom of a hoodie or something like that where it pulls it in. And then what I did for the sleeves is I lengthened the sleeves because in the original pattern, the cuff would take up some of the sleeve. I lengthened the sleeve the amount of the cuff. Then when I put it together, I created a channel and I inserted 1 inch wide elastic to bring it in and recreate a similar look to the bottom so it would be very consistent overall. I did not put the optional pockets in here because I put the piping, and you certainly can do, and this of course is completely reversible. I did not have a reversible zipper. I could not get it shipped to me in time, so my zippers are not reversible, but it doesn't mean I can't wear my jacket this way and just not zipper it. And when my zipper comes, I can just change it out. I may do that. And now I have a solid reversible jacket. Now I'm going to take you through putting the hood on your jacket so that you can have a hooded Causeway too. And then we'll be back. Okay, so let's talk about drafting the hood. One of the measurements we're going to want to take is this slope measurement here. As you see, the garment comes around the back and then it kind of slopes down to the front as any jacket would or hoodie or things like that. So we want to measure what that distance is from here to there. So I'll just adjust this properly. And then I'm going to take my quilting ruler, I'm going to put it on my shoulder seam, and then I'm going to come over to about where the point is. And you'll see that difference here is about 1.5 inches. So I want to make note of that for the shape of the front of our hood. Now we'll come over to the table and we'll draft that hood. Okay, so now we're going to measure to draft our hood. So we need to find out what the total circumference is that goes around the neck. So let me grab my measuring tape and a couple of things here. All right, I have the jacket completely constructed. The zipper is basted on, the sleeves are on. I have it folded and pinned at center back and shoulders and center front. I always leave my zipper on until the very end because I don't want that zipper pull falling off. So all I have to do now is measure half and double it because this is just half of the jacket. So you'll measure here at the seam line to get your amount. Yours will be different than mine depending on your size. So mine is 12 inches. And because our hood is going to be cut mirror images and sewn on the back seam, that's all we need is that dimension. All right, so now that we know that measurement, we're ready to construct our hood. You can use any hood pattern you already have from whatever pattern company. It's just a basic shape. I've chosen to use another itch to stitch pattern. This is the Castillo cardigan hood pattern. I've adjusted that a little bit, but that just gave me the basic shape. In order to find what size you'll need for your hood, we've already measured the neckline, so we know what that is. Now we need to measure how deep we want our hood to be. How deep we want our hood to be. So basically you're going to measure from the back of your head to the front where you want that hood to come over. And I'm going to have my hood at about 12.5 inches. And then you can measure how tall you want it, and I've got 15.5. Okay. So now you have this little slope that we talked about in the previous segment, so we already have that. Now to this hood, we will need to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance here because we are going to cut this mirror images and then sew that together. So I've added a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I need to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance to the front because I'm going to line this hood So we're going to sew the lining and the outer together with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take this away, and I think you can see this better. This is muslin. So after I created my pattern, I cut this out in muslin to make sure that it was going to fit. I forgot to add my 1/2 inch seam allowance when I cut this. So I've given myself a little note that when I cut it out of my fashion fabric, as this was just a muslin, a test, I'll add a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. I already have it included here. So you'll sew these right sides together along the back, and then we'll press that seam open eventually. But here is my pattern, okay? So I've gone ahead and cut this out, added that 1/2 inch seam allowance at the face. As you can see here, that it's a 1/2 inch bigger, okay? So this is my lining fabric, sewn right sides together, and this is my fashion fabric, sewn right sides together. One other thing I did here that I forgot to mention to you is I measured our jacket from center back to the shoulder seam. And I've marked that here with a notch. That way, when you're lining this up to sew it on, you know exactly how it'll fit together. Back seam, match the shoulder notches, and this will go to the front. So now we have our hood. It's exactly the same measurement as our neckline plus our seam allowance, so it'll fit on perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that on. That'll get sewn on in between the lining and the main fabric. And then we'll be ready to put our jacket together. All right, so here we have both of our hood, our lining, and our fashion fabric. I've sewn them along the top and the back center seam, each of those. Now we're going to put them together so we can sew them here along the part that goes around your face. So we're going to put those right sides together. Let me start at the top, center seam. Finger press those open and pin all the way around. All right, let's take a look what that looks like. So here we have our hoods right sides together, and we're going to sew all around the face of the hood. Okay, so we're now ready to sew along where we've clipped. That's the face of the hood. We're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance that we drafted for. My machine will automatically tie off in the beginning and the end. I'm just gonna go all the way around. And back stitch at the end. Okay, now I'm going to just understitch the seam allowance to the lining. That will keep it from flipping out. And to understitch, I'm just going to edge stitch pretty close to the seam allowance. You can use an edge stitching foot. I just have my same regular foot in here. So I'm just going to stitch in the seam allowance this way. All right, so now we have our hood, the lining and the outer sewn together. It's sewn together around the face and looking excellent. Line up our hood with the right side, that is the fashion fabric, touching the right side of the outer fabric. So I have my center back marked, I will line those up and clip that together. And you'll see, you can just double check that when you flip it up, your hood is the same fabric. You're not doing it accidentally the wrong way. And you remember when we marked the notches, the shoulder notches on our pattern? I have those marked here with my tailor's chalk. So this now will line up with the shoulder seams on the jacket. Pin that. And this lines up 1 to 1 here. It's terrific. And then we'll just go ahead and pin the rest of this to the collar. All right, now we're ready to sew it on.
You now have your hood sewn onto your fabric A or your outer fabric. Now you'll go on with the tutorial until you have everything sewn together. Next, we'll cover doing the woven band.
Now we've come to step 57 in the tutorial, where you attach your bottom band. We, of course, are using a woven band, so I cut this out of woven. And when I did that, I measured the exact length to cut out my woven band. The rib knit band in the tutorial will be slightly shorter because you're going to stretch it to fit. But of course you can't stretch a woven. So just like the hood, when we made it exact measurement, I made the band the exact measurement of the jacket plus seam allowance. So I measured from here to the side seam, across the back, and then of course this is the same measurement on this side, so those will get cut in mirror images. I added a 1/2 inch seam allowance to each place it'll be joined, so here and on the side to each piece. I then cut the back on the fold. I cut this mirror images, so the band is the exact circumference of the bottom of the jacket where it attaches. So then you sew on your band just as the tutorial will tell you in step 57, but of course you're not stretching anything, it will fit 1 to 1. In order to get that same look that the rib knit has, where it pulls it just in ever so slightly, we are going to use wide elastic in the bottom of our band. The band is 3 inches. I have 2 1/4 inch elastic here. If you have 2 1/2 or 2 3/4, I've measured the elastic from here all the way around to the other side, and I've cut it to that exact measurement because I'm going to need a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each end when I sew it here. That will be 1 inch shorter than the entire circumference, which will pull that in just enough without giving a really heavy gathered look. So at this point in the construction, the only place your outer and your lining, or side A and side B if you're doing a reversible, this is where you'll insert your elastic. I have here my Clover, I think it's called Clip and Glide bodkin, best bodkin ever made. I will link that to you in the description box because it's fantastic. So that's how it works. It has some teeth in here. You put it through your elastic and then it locks, and that is never coming. Okay, so the only place it's attached is here, so we're actually going to insert our elastic right here between the 2 fabrics, which is perfect. So I'm going to slide my bodkin in and my elastic, And I am just going to work that all the way through and around until I get around on the other side. Then I'm going to sew it here, and I'll show you how to do that. Here at the side seam, I'm going to stitch in the ditch in 4 places. 1, 2, same over here, 3 and 4, to keep your elastic from shifting. So I'm just going to go ahead and feed this through and feed this through. I'll set up to stitch in the ditch and I'll show you that. Now I have my elastic fully inserted in the bottom band, and you can see it peeking out between both. I have it pinned here, it's hanging over a 1/2 inch, and the same on this side. At this point, try on your jacket, because this is the point where you can make adjustments to the length of that elastic if you need to. You're the designer. You choose how you want it. So I tried this on and I decided that the elastic was still too long, that it wasn't pulling in at all. And I just want my jacket to sit on my hips so that it's not loose, but I also don't want it to seem like it's tight. I just want it to sit almost the exact circumference of my hips. So I took 1 inch off the length of the elastic. I told you I had made it the exact size of the band. I removed 1 inch and I hung this over a 1/2 inch on each side. Now it has the look that I want, and that's the time to do it. So now we're gonna go over to the sewing machine. You see I have it pinned here and here, and I've smoothed out the elastic all across the back so it'll be even. We'll stitch in the ditch here and on each of the side seams. Let's go over to the machine. Okay, so now I've changed my foot to my edge stitching foot. It has this little flange here in the middle. You may have one on the side. You can use either one, but that will you just guide that right at that seam and your needle will go right there. And I have matching thread as close as I have anyway. So I'm on a regular stitch length, 2.5, and we're just gonna go ahead and stitch from the top to the bottom, locking in at either end to keep that elastic where we want it. All right, so I'm all set. It'll lock it in the beginning. And I've got my thread, and I'm just gonna make sure my needle's going right where I want it. You're keeping that flange right there in the seam. I'm gonna wait till the last minute to remove my pin so that my elastic does not shift. And we're gonna say right there, and then we'll back stitch. All right, let's lift that from the machine. And we stitched right in there, and we're gonna come over and we're gonna do the same thing on the side seam. I'm going to find it much easier now to turn this and sew from the bottom to there since it's not open here.
Again, that's going to sit right in that seam. You're going to hold this flat. You're stitching through all the layers, of course. And we'll do the same thing. This will prevent your elastic from twisting while you wear it or while you wash it. It's going to be a little bulky in the front coming back up there. I'm going to go to about there and we're going to back stitch.
Lifting that up. And now we stitched right on that seam. We'll clip our threads and we'll do that 2 more times at the front and the side seam. I hope you're excited to try the hood hat and the band in woven. You can certainly still do the rib knit bands and just add the hood instead of the collar. That would be awesome. If you try that, please leave me a comment. Tag me on social media at Sewjourns, on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, here on YouTube. I had a really fun time doing this. I hope you'll check out Lifting Pins and Needles to see her beautiful jackets, her awesome jackets. And enjoy your Causeway Bomber Jacket. Thank you for joining me again. I'm Chris, and this is Sewjourns.